The wind howls through the stone corridors of Linlithgow Palace, its icy fingers creeping through the grand halls where a young queen is about to be born. Outside, Scotland is in turmoil, locked in a bitter conflict with its powerful southern neighbor England. Inside, December 8, 1542, Queen Marie de Guise labors through the night, giving birth to a daughter, Mary Stuart, the future Queen of Scots. But the celebration is short-lived. News arrives that King James V, her father, lies dying at Falkland Palace, weakened by illness and the crushing weight of defeat. Only days earlier, the Scots had suffered a humiliating loss to the English at the Battle of Solway Moss. As the dying king receives word that his newborn heir is a girl, he is said to whisper ominously, "It came with a lass. It will pass with a lass." With those words, James V breathes his last, leaving behind an infant queen and a kingdom on the brink of chaos. At just 6 days old, Mary Stuart is crowned Queen of Scotland, making her one of the youngest monarchs in history. A delicate, red-haired infant wrapped in fine linens, she is unaware of the storm brewing around her. Scotland, a nation divided between Catholic and Protestant factions, is vulnerable. The ambitious King Henry VIII of England, seeing an opportunity, presses forward with his plan to unite Scotland and England under his rule. His solution? The rough wooing. Henry demands that the infant Mary be betrothed to his young son, Prince Edward, securing English control over Scotland. But the Scottish nobles resist, unwilling to bow to English dominance. Furious, Henry launches a brutal campaign, burning towns, sacking abbeys, and slaughtering Scots in a bid to force the marriage through sheer terror. Fearing for her daughter's safety, Marie de Guise, a formidable French noblewoman, looks beyond England for protection. She turns to France, Scotland's longtime ally. A proposal is made. Mary will be sent to the French court, where she will be raised among royalty and eventually marry the Dauphin Francis, heir to the French throne. In 1548, at just 5 years old, Mary was whisked away from Scotland under heavy guard. As her ship sets sail from Dumbarton Castle, she leaves behind the only home she has ever known. The voyage is treacherous, the North Sea churns violently, and danger lurks on the horizon, but destiny calls. Upon arrival in France, Mary is received with open arms. The glittering world of the French court, filled with art, music, and lavish feasts, will be her new home. Here, she will grow into a refined and educated queen, far removed from the turmoil of her homeland. Yet, even as she settles into her privileged new life, the ghosts of Scotland still linger. The throne she left behind remains unstable, and powerful enemies plot in the shadows. The French court of King Henry II was a world of opulence, intrigue, and power plays. Here, Mary thrived. Raised among the Valois children, she quickly adapted to the refined customs of her new home. She was brilliant, charming, and effortlessly elegant, qualities that made her a favorite at court. Fluent in multiple languages, skilled in dance, poetry, and music, she embodied the ideal Renaissance princess. Yet, beneath the glittering surface of courtly life, the politics of power simmered, shaping the course of her future. In 1558, at just 15, Mary married Francis, the delicate and sickly Dauphin of France. Their union secured an alliance between the Scottish and French crowns, but it also deepened the growing tensions with England. As a descendant of Henry VII, Mary had a claim to the English throne, a claim that Queen Elizabeth I of England viewed with great suspicion. The following year, the death of King Henry II propelled Francis and Mary to the French throne. Now crowned as Queen of France, Mary stood at the pinnacle of her power. Yet, her reign as France's queen was tragically short-lived. Francis's fragile health deteriorated rapidly, and by December 1560, he was dead. At just 17, Mary was a widow, and her time in France was coming to an end. With her throne lost and her future uncertain, Scotland, the land she had left as a child, now called her home once more. But the Scotland she returned to was vastly different from the one she had left behind, and the challenges awaiting her there would test her resilience as never before. With her heart heavy and destiny uncertain, Mary Stuart prepared for a journey that would lead her from the grandeur of the French court to the tumultuous realm of her birthright. The sea roars as the ship carrying Mary, Queen of Scots, approaches the shores of Leith, Scotland. She stands on the deck, her delicate French silks damp from the ocean spray, eyes fixed on the dark, mist-covered land before her. This is her kingdom, one she has not seen in 13 years. The last time she was here, she was a child. Now, at 18 years old, she returns as a widowed queen. But Scotland is not the glittering French court she left behind. It is a land of political treachery, religious turmoil, and noble factions vying for power. Mary is not just returning home, she is stepping into a den of wolves. From the moment Mary arrived, Knox makes it clear that he sees her not as a rightful monarch, but as a threat to Scotland's Protestant faith. He thundered from the pulpit, "A woman ruler is an abomination in the sight of God." He publicly condemns her for hosting private Catholic masses in her chapel, for wearing French gowns, for simply being a young, independent woman in power. Their fiery encounters become legendary, with Mary standing her ground against Knox's relentless attacks. But her enemies are growing, and Scotland is an unforgiving place for a Catholic queen in a Protestant kingdom. So, in order to solidify her claim to both the Scottish and English thrones, Mary must marry. But choosing a husband in that era, for someone of her political standing, is more than a romantic decision. It is a dangerous game of power and survival. Therefore, she married Henry, Lord Darnley. A tall, charming man of royal blood, Darnley seemed like the perfect match. He is Mary's cousin, and his lineage strengthens her claim to England's throne. Blinded by love or perhaps desperation, Mary married him in 1565. But the fairy tale quickly crumbles. Darnley was arrogant, power-hungry, and prone to drunken violence. He resents Mary's authority and demands the crown matrimonial, which would make him co-sovereign. When she refused, Darnley becomes erratic, his jealousy spiraling out of control. By 1566, Darnley's jealousy reaches a terrifying climax. He suspects that Mary is too close to her secretary, David Rizzio, an Italian musician and confidant. Whispers of an affair, unfounded but deadly, spread through the court. One night, while Mary was 6 months pregnant, a band of armed men stormed into her private chambers at Holyrood Palace. Darnley was among them. Before Mary's horrified eyes, they drag Rizzio from her side and stab him 56 times. Blood pools on the floor as the assassins flee, leaving the queen in shock. Mary, however, was no helpless victim. Days later, she outmaneuvers Darnley, gathers her allies, and regains control. But the man she once loved has now become her greatest enemy. And by early 1567, Darnley's fate was sealed. He has made too many enemies, not just Mary, but also the Scottish nobles. That February, Darnley was recovering from an illness at Kirkhofield, a quiet estate outside Edinburgh. Late one night, an explosion shatters the silence. Darnley's lifeless body was found in the garden, strangled but otherwise unharmed, suggesting he was murdered before the explosion. Scotland erupts in scandal. Who killed Lord Darnley? Suspicion immediately falls on James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell, a powerful noble and one of Mary's closest allies. Just 3 months after Darnley's murder, Mary marries Bothwell. The scandal is immediate and catastrophic. Some claim she was in on the murder. Others say she was forced into the marriage. The Scottish lords turned against her. By July 1567, Mary was captured and imprisoned at Loch Leven Castle. Betrayed by her own nobles, she was forced to abdicate in favor of her infant son, James. As she watched her throne slip away, one thing was clear: Scotland had turned its back on its queen. But Mary is not done yet. From the cold stone walls of her prison, she begins to plan her greatest gamble yet, her escape. The air is damp, the stone walls cold. Mary, Queen of Scots, once a ruler of nations, now finds herself a prisoner in Loch Leven Castle, a fortress surrounded by dark waters and distant whispers of betrayal. Her enemies have won. Her infant son, James has been crowned King of Scotland, and she has been forced to sign away her throne. But Mary is not broken. For 11 months, she endured humiliation, isolation, and sickness, yet her mind never ceases plotting. She still has loyal supporters among the Scottish nobles, and the dream of regaining her crown flickers like a candle in the dark. Then, in May 1568, the impossible happened. She escaped. With the help of Lord George Douglas, a sympathizer smitten by her charm, Mary disguises herself and flees Loch Leven. As she steps onto the boat that will carry her across the lake, hope surges through her veins. This is her chance to reclaim Scotland. Riding at full speed, she gathered an army of 6,000 loyal men and marched toward Glasgow, ready to challenge the Scottish lords who betrayed her. But fate, once again, is cruel. On May 13, 1568, at the Battle of Langside, Mary's forces were crushed by the army of her half-brother, James Stuart, Earl of Moray. The battle was swift, lasting only 45 minutes, and Mary watched as her dreams of reclaiming her throne turned to ash. With nowhere left to go, she made a fateful decision, one that will seal her fate forever. Mary fled south, riding 100 miles in just 2 days, her only thought, Elizabeth I, Queen of England. Surely, her cousin, a fellow queen, a fellow woman, will offer her shelter, protection, and the chance to regain her throne. But Mary underestimates Elizabeth, a ruler who sees her as both a blood relative and a mortal threat. Mary was a queen without a kingdom, a prisoner wrapped in velvet and lace. Though she was treated with courtesy, she was never free. Elizabeth, fearing that Mary might inspire Catholic uprisings, keeps her under the watchful eye of Sir Francis Walsingham, her spymaster. But Mary was no passive prisoner. She wrote letters in secret, weaving conspiracies from behind locked doors. Messages were smuggled in wine barrels, concealed in coded writing. She never stops fighting for her freedom, and for the throne she believes is rightfully hers. And then, after 19 years, comes the moment that changes everything. A letter is intercepted, a letter that will lead Mary to the executioner's block. In 1586, a group of young Catholic conspirators, led by Anthony Babington, devised a plan to assassinate Elizabeth I and place Mary on the English throne. The plot was reckless, ambitious, and doomed from the start. Unbeknownst to Mary, Walsingham had set a trap. He allows the letters between her and the conspirators to flow freely, only to intercept them at the right moment. Then, the evidence is revealed. Mary has sanctioned Elizabeth's murder. Whether she was truly guilty or simply desperate, it no longer matters. Elizabeth has what she needs. A trial is held. The verdict is inevitable. For Mary, there is only one sentence: death. The air is thick with the chill of winter, but inside Fotheringhay Castle, the tension is colder still. Mary, Queen of Scots, once a monarch of 2 nations, now stands condemned. Her crime? Treason against Queen Elizabeth I. For 19 years, she has been a prisoner, locked away in grand yet suffocating captivity. She has written letters in cipher, whispered of uprisings, and never abandoned her dream of regaining her throne. But now, the final betrayal, the Babington plot, has sealed her fate. On February 7, 1587, Mary received the dreaded message. The execution will take place at dawn. However, despite the news, her reaction was calm, perhaps even relief. She had lived in the shadow of death for decades. Now, the waiting is over. Mary spent her final evening in prayer and reflection. She wrote her last letters, including one to her former brother-in-law, King Henry III of France, declaring that she died a martyr for her Catholic faith. She dressed with great care, choosing a gown of deep crimson, the color of martyrdom and Catholic tradition. Every decision, every word, every action in these final hours is deliberate. If she is to die, she will die as a queen, not a traitor. On February 8, 1587, Fotheringhay Castle's Great Hall. At dawn, Mary was led to the execution chamber. She walked with dignity, her head held high, as she faced the scaffold draped in black. The crowd was small, mostly noble witnesses and executioners. There was no public spectacle. Elizabeth had ensured that Mary's death would not become a rallying cry for Catholic rebellion. As she ascended the steps, she smiled. "I am the rightful queen," she whispers. She knelt before the block, forgiving her executioners and praying aloud in Latin. The headsman, nervous, raises his axe. The first blow misses her neck, striking the back of her head. Gasps fill the chamber. Mary does not scream. The second blow lands, but her head is not fully severed. Only on the third strike did the executioner finally sever her head. He lifts it high, only for her auburn wig to slip off, revealing the gray, shrunken head of a woman worn by years of sorrow and captivity. The silence was absolute. Even in death, she was not the romantic queen of legend, but a woman broken by time and betrayal. Elizabeth, upon hearing of Mary's death, is said to have wept, claiming she never truly wanted her cousin executed. Whether guilt, regret, or political theater, no one will ever know. Mary's son, James VI of Scotland, does not seek revenge. He knows that one day, he will be King of England, and he waits for history to play its course. And in 1603, history did change. Elizabeth I died childless. James VI of Scotland becomes James I of England, uniting the crowns at last. The son of Mary, Queen of Scots, takes the throne of the very nation that murdered his mother. Mary did not live to see it, but in the end, her blood still won. Thanks for tuning into the past. Don't forget to subscribe and join us next time for more stories that shaped our world.